Take a look at this CD cover, guys. The futuristic 3D sports game of hockey, demolition derby, and combat. Sounds like fun, right? Well, this CD cover is one of the biggest lies in the history of the universe. Heck, even the title is technically a lie since the in-game title graphics weren't changed for this rename. It's like some strange marketing experiment or something, which is sad since the game itself is, okay, it's not great, but I've certainly played far worse. Sorry for the late episode, guys, but I've been super busy with the move, not to mention getting everything going again. In any case, today we're taking a quick look at a fairly simple, easy to play, but very rough around the edges game called 3D CyberPuck, also known simply as CyberPuck with the second C missing from the title, also known as 3D Cyberblaster, also known as Ball Blaster. Yeah, when I gave you guys the hint for this episode, I thought the game only had like 2 different names, not 4. Might help to explain why very few people seem to know about this thing, but maybe it's for the best considering this is one of those games that has a lot of neat ideas in it, but really poor execution. The reason I know about it is because you could find it on tons of shareware CDs back in the 90s, and during that time, having texture mapped 3D environments was kind of this crazy novelty and seemed to get tons of attention, even if your game sucked. This game is unfortunately one of the ones that sucks, thanks mostly to poor balancing and a lack of proper testing. But in the end, considering how much I played it as a kid, and considering how obscure this game is, I figured it'd be worth at least a quick look. 3D CyberPuck was developed by Dungeon Entertainment and published by Homebrew Software in 1992, which I will admit is a lot earlier than I thought the game was made, and does make it a little more impressive considering its fully textured environment. The best genre I can assign to it is a sports game, with both a single-player mode and a networked multiplayer versus mode for 2 players. It supports 320 by 200 256 color VGA graphics and has PC speaker and Sound Blaster support for sound effects and ad-lib support for music. I should note though that the PC speaker effects are nothing more than little beeps anytime a Sound Blaster effect would normally play. So yeah, stick with the Sound Blaster sounds. As for its current release state, while the game was originally shareware, I have no idea if it's still possible to register the game anymore, so your best bet is to hunt down a commercial release. They can be kinda hard to find, but shouldn't run more than a few dollars when you do, even in brand new condition. As you can probably tell by now, 3D CyberPuck is really simple. You control a sort of hovercraft from a first-person view and have to get a ball into a goal. You pick up the ball by touching it and shoot it with the spacebar. When not holding the ball, you can punch your opponent with the spacebar instead, which is used to knock the ball away from them. Your opponent has the same idea in mind and will be attempting to score points and punch the ball away from you if you get it. In the single-player mode, in order to progress from level to level, you have to win matches. To win a match, you must score 5 points before time runs out. If your opponent scores 5 points first, or you run out of time, you have to replay the level. Fortunately, you always get a little extra cash to spend at the shop under these circumstances, but because of how extremely expensive the power-ups can get, this doesn't always help you out. Before you actually start a game though, you need to select your skill level, either easy, normal, or difficult. The trouble with the skill selection though is that it only affects how expensive the items are in the shop, how fast your opponent moves, and how many upgrades your opponent will have in each match. What makes this troubling is that there aren't any speed upgrades, and the AI's methodology is extraordinarily basic. So on easy skill, the AI is a joke since it can't ever catch you. On normal skill, you can just outthink it. But on difficult skill, the AI is faster than you almost all of the time. So the moment they get the ball, they're almost guaranteed to score, and the moment you get the ball, they're almost guaranteed to hit it away. As such, this game's probably much more fun to play networked than solo. Between levels, you also get access to a shop which has a selection of 16 power-ups, 8 of which are consumable and 8 of which provide ambient effects. They're all fairly self-explanatory, except some of the consumables are ridiculously expensive, so much so that it makes no sense to save up for them, as you need to score at least a couple or 3 perfect rounds just to buy one. One power-up of note, though, is the ball direction indicator, which converts the 2 long bars at the top of the screen into directional guides, showing you how much you have to turn left or right in order to face the ball. One consumable power-up you're going to definitely want to pay attention to, though, is the gravity well. Once dropped, a gravity well will alter the direction of the ball whenever it passes by, and unlike most of the consumables, gravity wells last for the entire match, so strategically placing them near your goal can help keep your opponent from shooting the ball in. You also want to upgrade your catch, punch, and shield capabilities as soon as you can, so that it'll be easier to catch the ball, easier to knock the ball away from the opponent, and harder for the opponent to knock the ball away from you. Yeah, that's really all there is to the game, short of a wide selection of maps to play, most of which move the goal gates in some way, like side to side or spinning in place. And really, on the surface, the game isn't all that bad. It's mostly just the major lapse in the difficulty that can be really bothersome when trying to play the game solo, since the normal skill level eventually gets way too easy, and the difficult skill level is impossible unless you abuse the game's mechanics. And as I said before in my review of Raptor: Call of the Shadows, having to abuse the game mechanics to get anywhere is not the mark of good game design. The game does have a couple major aesthetic oversights though, including typos in what little instructional text there is, as well as a couple points during the map sequence where the map you're given in the middle of the screen doesn't match the actual map you're playing on. Besides which, the map in the middle is almost useless since it doesn't show any positions or anything. Really, this game is worth trying just for curiosity's sake, and it'd probably be a neat thing to collect if you like collecting obscure titles, but the gameplay itself isn't going to hold your attention for more than an hour or two, so this pretty much is just a collector's item nowadays. Besides, the shareware versions of this game are still floating around the net, so if you really want to give it a try, there you go. In terms of configuring this game for DOSBox, most of it is simple enough. Make sure you set cycles to max, and if you want to use a joystick, you need to turn off timed intervals. But I don't recommend using a joystick because the game's joystick support has issues. However, out of 111 episodes of Ancient DOS games, this is the very first time I've ever had to adjust the Sound Blaster mixer setting. So let me explain why you need to. Those of you who are well versed in DOSBox know that if you type in mixer at the command prompt, it'll show you a list of volume levels for all of DOSBox's active sound devices, one of these being for FM synthesized sound, like ad-lib music. You can also use the mixer command to adjust these volume levels, which is important for games like this one where the ad-lib music is substantially louder than sound effects, and there's no in-game way to adjust these. I recommend using the mixer command before running the game to adjust the FM levels to 45%. But at the same time, original Sound Blaster hardware worked by having its own internal mixer for adjusting its own volume settings. And by default, DOSBox allows programs to adjust these settings, which makes sense as some programs may need to do this for their own volume control purposes. But truth be told, most will never touch these settings. On the other hand, 3D CyberPuck goes into the mixer settings and always maxes them out when you start playing, completely overriding your previous attempt to set the FM level to 45%. Thus, this is one of the extremely few games where you need to set the mixer value in the Sound Blaster section of the config file to false, thus preventing the game from messing with any of the mixer settings you set yourself. Anywho, that's all for this episode of Ancient DOS Games. I'm still a bit short on time, so next week for episode 112, I'll once again be covering a simple game, nothing too fancy, that I can best describe as a game that tries to spice up one of the most boring household chores ever conceived. And it does it in text mode. If you think you know which game it is, then send your guess to adg@pixelships.com and tune in next Saturday to see how this concept even works.